Hi there, welcome to our channel. I'm Vic.
And I'm Nick.
And we are MV Board Gaming. And today we're looking at Ark Nova. This is a game designed by Mateus Wiga, and it is brought to the US by Capstone Games. This is for 1 to 4 players, and Nick is going to go through how you play, and then we're going to give our review.
Hey everyone, let's get you an idea of how to play Ark Nova. So right now I'm set up for a 2-player game. We're going to focus on the blue player board and some of the main board. Other parts will be cut off, but every important part right now is in focus, I believe. So let's get you familiar with some of the things on our board, some of the symbology here. We'll also go over what triggers game end, who's going to win, how you figure out who won, and everything and all your actions you're doing, just to get you familiar with how this game actually plays. This isn't going to be a rules overview necessarily, just to get you familiar is like how this game works. So on our board, we have this actually is for breaks. It's a coffee mug, so it's going to track rounds. With a 2-player game, it's where it's set up right now. It's just barely on screen, and it'll count down the rounds all the way to here. Whoever triggers the end of round is going to get an X token. This allows them to increase their actions by 1 per X token they spend. So we have trackers going on this green track right here. This is for the conservation track. Conservation points are all in these green, and they're going around this way. These are attraction, appeal. They're called appeal, and they're going around this way. Game is going to end when somebody meets their markers in the same area. As soon as that happens, it's going to trigger round end. The other player's going to get one more turn, and that's going to be it. So what you're doing to earn these appeal tracks is playing animals, for instance. You can play animals, you can play sponsorships, you can build, you can do association actions over here, and acquiring different cards is another action. So we're going to go over all 5 of those actions shortly. We have our own player board that you can put tiles on. You can put enclosures on these, and these are coming all different kinds. I just happen to have map 1 right here. If it's your first game, you're going to play with map A. If you're a beginner, you'd play with map 0. Some of them have different abilities. So for instance, mine, I have a little tower right here, and I gain 2 tickets for every time I flip an adjacent standard enclosure to its occupied side. So what that means is, let's say I did a build action, and I put a building. Well, first of all, let's build out, because I can't just build anywhere. So let's say I put a building here. It's a 3 enclosure. It's a standard enclosure. When I put an animal in this enclosure, it flips like that, and now my ability would trigger. That's just all that means. But I don't start with anything other than some coins here. 25 coins. I have also an association action I can do, because I have one of my people right there. So let's go ahead and go over these actions here, give you a feel of what's going on. So to start the game, you are going to start with your animal card in the 1 slot no matter what. Everything else is going to be randomized. So that's going to be all shuffled. Your animals go in your 1 spot. So you're not going to actually be able to do an animal action at first, because you see that there is no animal action for the 1 slot. So as these cards go to the right, they become more powerful. So right now, my most powerful card is what's called a sponsor card. That just happened to work out that way. Beginning of the game will give me some idea of what I might want to do. Before these cards are actually revealed, I actually have to pick, or I get to look at these. Sorry, we don't have to pick which one to take yet, but we will at a certain point in this game. Specifically, when one player hits this area, we'll have to decide which one of these we actually want. So I would go ahead and look at some direction of what I might want, what animals I might want to keep, what cards in general, because we're going to get 8 cards to start the game, and we're going to pick 4 of those 8 cards. So I'm going to bring a few cards over here just to use examples. All right. So now that we have that out of the way, we have some basic conservation projects we can endorse right here. We have some for birds, Australia, and species diversity. These are different things that I can do when I take an association action, which is one of the actions. So let's go through one at a time what these actions are. Sponsors is my most powerful action at the moment. If I were to play sponsors, I would go ahead and push this down a little bit to remind myself this is the card I'm playing. When I'm done playing that card, it goes to the 1 spot and everything else slides over. That's going to happen every single action you do. You take this down, you put it all the way at the 1 spot, and everything slides to the right. So just know that is what you're going to do every single turn. So if I were to take the sponsor action, that would mean I'd have a sponsor card, And you can tell which one's a sponsor card because, well, you don't have a hex there, so there's no enclosure for it. It shows an action symbol instead. So this is a sponsor card, whereas this is an animal card, not just because it's so obvious it's an animal, but you can also just look here and see that it's an enclosure. There's a hex there. There's animals here, there's continents, there's all kinds of stuff. This is a sponsor card. I always just look at that. And right here, any cards that have this, any symbols on the left side are prerequisites. You actually need that symbol in your zoo. So right now I couldn't even play this, even though it's a 5, and that's perfect because I have a 5 action I'm doing with the sponsor. I couldn't play it because I don't have any science symbols. So I would look to play a different 5 or less. I could play a 4 sponsor. And when I play it, it just goes in my zoo and gives me an ongoing ability or an endgame points. So let's take this one. This is another one I wouldn't be able to do because if you look at the Meerkat Den, meerkats are awesome, by the way, but if you have this, you would need to have 3 reputation. Reputation is a track that is over here. You can see these hats. So I would need to have at least my marker to here. There's different ways of getting it. You can see I can do an association action right away to get 2. There's another association action. That lets me get 2 or 1. So forth. There's a bunch of ways to get what you need, but I have to do that before I consider doing that. So I can look, actually, and use this as an example. Let's say I really wanted to play this meerkat den. I really wanted to because I love meerkats. It's going in my den. I'm going to put these meerkats in their den. So my goal is going to go ahead and be, I need to get those 3. I only have 1, so I need 2 more, okay? I only need 2 more. That means if I go here even, that's fine. Well, can I do that? I look. This is an association board. So I look at my association action. It is actually a 2. It's very weak, but it's strong enough to do this. And I have one of these. So if my goal is totally, I am really wanting to get this meerkat den, I can do that. With my action, I could say, I'm gonna do the association action. It says perform 1 association task with a maximum value of X. Well, my maximum value is 2, no problem. I can go ahead and do that. So this one goes to the 1. I go ahead and put this out here, showing I'm doing this action, which lets me move up 2 reputation. 1, 2. Now the next player goes. So all I did was an association action and I put that pawn out. That's done. My turn is over. But I know my next turn, if I want, I can do this. I can do the sponsor card. So my opponent goes and it's my turn. I am now going to do this sponsor action of 5, which I happen to have slotted at 5. This will now go to, I can mark it down here, however you want to do it. I'm just going to go ahead and slide it to 1 right now. It's a 5 value, I know that. So I can play this because I have 3 reputation and a 5 action sponsors. If I were to have that at a 4, I have to spend one of those X symbols if I were to have it. And I can make it a 5. Otherwise, the only other way to do it really would be to do a 5 action, make that go away so your 4 action slides over. So just a little FYI right there. So I'm going to do this action. Right away, it says immediately I get to play this meerkat out, but it also has it's telling you it has to be next to rocks. Sometimes you'll see rocks, sometimes you'll see water here, and that just goes to your map. So I have to place this next to rocks. So I start at the bottom over here, that's fine. From here on out, I have to build out adjacent. So let's just say I start at the bottom left, and I put this meerkat den out. That is a symbol, that is exactly the tile listed here, and anything I cover up, I get. So it's free to place this. I put it here, and I'm actually getting 5 coins for doing that. And then I get whatever ongoing ability it says. In this case, each time you play a herbivore icon, which is this green one right here, this deer eating some grass, into your zoo, you're going to gain 2 of the appeal. So that's cool that I got this at the beginning of the game. It's going to help me throughout the game. I add this this meerkat den card to my own area. Just a reminder that I have that ability. Not only that, but I also get perhaps a conservation point at the end of the game if I have 6 herbivores in my zoo. If I have 12, I get 2. Very unlikely, but if it happens, it happens. So a good card to start with, especially. So that is a sponsor. That's actually 2 actions. So we saw an association action. I can go over all these other ones here. We saw a sponsor action. That's always what sponsors do. The other option you have here, if you don't do the sponsor action, you can actually just take a break and get coins. So in this case, my sponsor action would have given me 5 breaks, so that coffee mug would have moved 5 over to the left and would have gained 5 coins. Note that these cards, I'm just going to throw this out there right now, you can upgrade them based on certain when you hit certain criteria. The upgrade symbol, you can see it right here actually. So whenever it tells you to flip a card, decide 2, you can decide which card you want. You're not going to be able to flip over all 5 of your cards, but you can flip up to 4 cards because there are different ways that you're going to be able to hit these landmarks that let you flip and upgrade a card. So for instance, this sponsor card gets a little better. You can actually play cards from reputation range. So if you remember, reputation's up here, so I can play one of these 2 cards perhaps. This one's actually a sponsor card, so I could do that if this were upgraded. Play one from reputation and pay at the cost. In that case, it's only a 1, so you can see these are costed a little higher if you were to play them from reputation range. Or I can get a break and actually get double the coins for that if this were upgraded. I'm not going to explain every upgraded action, just want to explain the basic actions, but I went over that for an example. All right, so you know a sponsor action, and you know some of an association action. Alternatively, an association action, I will go here and get a partner zoo in a continent. Now, if I were to do that, I would put this in this area here with the handshakes. Whenever you see those handshakes, it means your partner zoo. So I'm acquiring this partner zoo. Now I took the Americas. Anytime I play an animal that shows a tag of the Americas, I am going to get -3 to the cost. Another spot here, if I were to go here, I can get some science tokens. Again, you saw a card that was actually required that I have that token. I need to have some, it doesn't have to be a token, but I have to have that tag somewhere. It could be on a different card. You can see this one actually gives me one, but I cannot play it until I have one as a prerequisite. So this one, sure, it'll give me one once I have it, but I gotta have it first. So I gotta be able to play it out. This would let me do that. I can take even just this one token, and it'll give me 2 reputations and 1 token. So you have to have at least a 4 association to do that. And the last option here is a 5 action. We're going to ignore this because you don't actually get this until you've upgraded this action. So we're going to ignore that. This 5 one here lets you contribute to these conservation projects. So what this is saying is you get to remove one of the cubes from here, which give you ongoing bonuses. Some of them give you ongoing at the top, like right now, and ongoing every income phase, or a very powerful one immediately. You decide, but you're going to remove that, take the bonus, and place it on one of these criteria that you meet. So if you had 4 birds, you can put this on the 4 bird spot and get 4 conservation points immediately along with this bonus. So you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, but you have to make sure you have those bird icons in your zoo. So Nick, how do you get these things into your zoo? Let's go over it. So now we're done with association. First thing you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to build. You need a spot for these, you need an enclosure for these animals to live. So a build action, every hex you build upon, this is how large the enclosure can be. So 4, I can go up to 4. I can do a small enclosure as a 1. If I just had a very small animal, maybe it's only a 1 enclosure, and that's all I want. Okay, that's fine. Or you can go all the way up to 4 since it's at a 4. So let's say I built a 4. If I want to build a 4, it's going to cost me 8 coins because it's 2 per space. So I go ahead and take a 4 enclosure from the supply, and I have to build out adjacent. Again, anything I cover up, I will get that bonus. You notice there are spots on the board that require an upgrade. Again, it has that 2 symbol, so that's saying you need to have a build action upgrade to even build in those spots. So right now I couldn't. I could build here though because there is none of those symbols here. It just says a different bonus right there. I'm going to go ahead and put there. It cost me 8 coins, so I can pay those. And that's an example of a build. And it goes away. It goes back to 1. All right, my turn comes around again. And now to put an animal in that enclosure, if I have a 4 or less, if you want to be less efficient, normally you would build a 4 for a 4 if you can. But I can play my animals card to play a card from my hand. So let's take a look at an example. Well, here's one here. This one's saying, and I wouldn't be able to do it in this situation, but as a hypothetical, 4 enclosure, 19 credits. If there were not these prerequisites right here that I needed 2 herbivores in my zoo or have these tagged, if that didn't exist, I can do this. I could pay $19 because I have 25 in this hypothetical, and I would get 6 change, and I would go ahead and be able to flip this enclosure right here to show that this animal now occupies that enclosure. I would then have these tags for the rest of the game. You just kind of have it showing in your off to the side, just to remember in case these are required for something else. And you're going to get this many attraction points. Appeal, I always call it attraction, is their appeal token, appeal coin right here. So I would go up 7, 0 to 7. And I would have this bonus here, whatever it might say. So that is how you play animals out. And there are all kinds of ways to play animals because there's all kinds of things you can build. When you build, at the beginning you can't build all that much. You can build a kiosk. A kiosk gives you coins, good for income. A pavilion, which just gives you an immediate 1 appeal. And it shows you right here, very small print, so I'm just reading it to you. But a kiosk gives you money, very little money, but it's only 1 hex. They're both only 1 hex, a kiosk and a pavilion. A standard zoo enclosure, which I already showed you, that was a 4. Or a petting zoo. A petting zoo, they're a little more rare, but they'll show a symbol, a 3 hex symbol, and that's the only type of exhibit that you can share animals with as far as the basic build action. They are 3 hexes and they look, let's see if I have one on this. There's 2 trays in here. Here's one. This is what a petting zoo looks like. It has 3 hexes and it will show the symbol on the card. I can find one pretty quickly probably, but if I don't, I'll just take my word for it. I can show you other ones right there. I'll set these aside. This is for an aviary. I'll show you that as an example. This one's for the reptile house. I'll show you that as an example. Let's see if I can find a petting zoo here. Those are smaller animals. Sometimes they're rare to find. They're particularly good for beginning of the game, just because they're the one that you can build at the beginning of the game. So this cute little wallaby here will live in a petting zoo. And you can see that right there. It's totally unique from all the hexes that you have been used to seeing right there. So if I were to build that, again, you can see it's a 3 hex. So that's going to cost me 6 to build. But I'm going to say I'm going to build a petting zoo for $6. And this one here shows cubes. That means how many cubes you're going to put out here. It takes up to 3 cubes. And this wallaby is going to take up 1 spot in your petting zoo if you were to build a petting zoo. So you're going to take one of the cubes from the supply. We already know it has to be connected in some way. So let's just say it's right there. And I put it there, shows my wallaby, goes there. I spend the 7 coins. If I had the petting zoo, I can put them in, takes up 1, I get all this stuff. And I go ahead and put this in my zoo with the rest of my cards. That's the only type of building you can do that is kind of unique just to start out, the petting zoo. But if you were to upgrade, now we're talking. We get the large bird aviary and we get a reptile house as an option. Those are both 5 hexes, so they're going to cost you 10 to build, 5 times 2. So to build those, and what they're good for, they can do the same concept as a petting zoo, except they're listed here, and all kinds of birds can go in there in this aviary one. So you can see that 1 cube in that spot, and I'll show you what that looks like right here. This can hold up to 5 cubes, so that's pretty awesome. That's very efficient to put that in. Otherwise, this guy is going to cost you a 4 enclosure. And that's just for 1 animal, whereas this one could potentially give you 5 animals for a 5 enclosure. That is such a good payout. So these are really helpful to get. Also note that if you were to build this, let's say you put this animal in a 4 enclosure earlier in the game, and then you got this. At that point, you could move them to the enclosure. The hypothetical. I don't want to keep attaching things, but I can move them from the enclosure they were previously in. Let's say they were in this 4 one right here. They were in the 4 by a mountain, and I can go ahead and take them off of that enclosure to free it up and instead put them here. This is the only time you can do that, right when you place that building. It's the same concept for the reptile house. Same exact concept. All right. So that is playing animals, building, association, sponsors, and the last one is very easy, cards. So when you do this action, you're going to increase the break marker by 2, and you're going to draw cards based upon what action you're on. So I'm on 5. I can either draw 3 and discard 1, or do an action that's called a snapping action. So let's go over this. We have all the cards in our hand, and we're drawing 3. You're going to put those 3 into your hand. So you could have a bunch of cards, but you're only discarding 1. So it's not just one of the 3 that you picked up. It is one of all the 3 plus the cards you already had that you have to discard. So you're getting 2 new cards essentially. So yeah, this all will drop. Will get significantly worse as it goes down here. But if you need cards, you need cards. Now snapping lets you take a card from the board out here, and the cool thing is if you do that, you can pick any of those cards. It doesn't have to be in reputation range, because right now my reputation is 3, so I only have typically a choice of these 2 cards. When you do the snap action, you have a choice of any card showing. So there's more cards even off the screen. There are 6 cards out there. Actually, maybe you have a view of this one, but there's one right here as well. They go all the way over there. So I can, if I snap and I really saw something I wanted, I can acquire that instead of just drawing aimlessly. Because if there's a card I really want, maybe I don't want to draw. I just want that card so bad. So that lets you, it gives you some control of the card you get if you were to snap. So those are your 5 actions. Yes, there's more to this game, but in general, you're trying to get the most appeal and the most conservation points up there. However far you pass those 2 markers is your final score. And whoever has the best score, meaning they've passed by the farthest margin, is the winner of this game. The only other rule that I'll mention is that we went over these basics. We can also get other ones that are not basics that we actually acquire. There are ways to play these out too. So then you can have first dibs on maybe acquiring these and getting them out here. This one's releasing an animal with an Asia icon into the wild. So you can put cubes on these even. So there's 2 spots for a 2-player game, 3 spots for a 3-player game, and 4 for another. That requires you to do an upgrade to even play these type of cards out, I believe. So yeah, you can add different conservation projects to the board. You don't have to just go with the base ones out here. All right, and there you go. That gives you a gist of how you're playing Ark Nova.
All right, thank you so much for the overview of how you play. So I'm going to start off right away with things that I immediately like about Ark Nova. I was immediately amused by the theme of the game. Anytime you have cute animals, I'm sold. And the idea of a zoo tile placement economic game was really interesting to me. I like that kind of thing. So looking at all the cards, there are hundreds of cards.
Yeah,
so I was
a little over 200 maybe.
Yeah, I loved that. That was awesome. And there was beautiful artwork on all of them. So cute. And it's realistic artwork, so it's not cartoon. It's real zoo.
It might even be stock images.
Yeah, they're like real photos,
yeah.
But it's nice. I like the style of it all. It makes sense to me rather than having like a cartoon drawing of zoo animals.
In this case, it does work.
Yeah, and the symbology and the way you can kind of chain things off and build engines really reminded me of Terraforming Mars. I know a lot of people, it's not really a hot take. A lot of people have been saying that comparison, that they enjoyed that. And I like that part of Meadow, but I felt like this did better on those symbols and trying to match things together. I really enjoyed the different strategies that you can employ. I know right away I enjoy a game if the first time I play it, I'm thinking about afterwards the different ways I could have played. And thinking, oh, I really want to play that again. I want to try this different avenue, or I'm going to explore this different method to sort of try to win.
Yeah, you got to sit on that for a while because you were gone. You played it once,
Yeah.
you were gone for a while, then you got to play it a few more times.
Yeah, so that was rough for me, just dreaming of it. Really enjoy. So after the first time we played, I know some folks talk about the length of this game, but I think that the actions are quite quick once you have player familiarity with it, because you're not really doing anything too crazy. I mean, the thing that can maybe take you the most is doing 2 animals at once when you've upgraded that animal action, because then you're going to maybe build tickets, you're going to start gaining bonuses from different people adding certain things to their zoo, or yourself adding things. You may gain extra tickets or trying to figure out where you're going to place them. That can take a while, but still, I didn't think the game was too long, especially at 2. And Nick and I played 2 players a lot, so I really thought that that was a good game for him and I to have in the collection, because we play often just at 2 players. We played it at 4, and I felt, and you can tell me how you felt about this, I thought it was a little bit long, but it was the first time that others had played it, so I think that if we had experienced players, obviously it would have gone down, and I would play it at 4 anytime. And I guess I can say the last thing I really liked about it is that it is a tile laying game with just different ways that you have different boards that you can use. So I like that they have different abilities on the boards. I like that we're always doing something different, it feels, and that there are different objectives. I love that. So those are some of the things that I felt are pros.
All right,
What
your
about you?
last point hits on my very first point
Ooh.
about there being a bunch of objectives. And what I mean by objectives is not simply the conservation objectives, but you're getting objectives that you don't even think about. It's not even occurring to you that these are technically objectives. You're looking at your cards, I need these tags. Well, that's an objective. That's something you're looking to do. So you're trying to get primates, a bunch of primates. This one needs 3 primates, but it's a super great card.
Yeah.
I'm working my way toward that. I just need one more. So I'm starting to look at what are my options here? How can I get that tag? You're trying to get research for certain things. You're trying to get your end game objective as well, not just the conservation objectives. So there's a lot of things you're building towards. You're doing all kinds of things you're building towards. You might have an ability that's ongoing, and you're building towards utilizing that ability all the time. You're like, oh, I can get discounts with small animals or what have you, birds, anything. So it gives you direction, but you create the directions often. Sometimes it gives it to you just as an end game objective, but other times you're creating those objectives with cards you obtain throughout the game. So you're developing strategies as you go. Another thing that I wrote down as far as pros is replayability that you hit on for the different maps. I like that. It was a nice touch to have double-sided maps and a bunch of different ones, so you can actually, like, oh, I'm not going to do this map, I'm going to do this one this time. So last time we played, we traded maps. One of us had a map 2 and one of us had map 1. We've only played map 1, map 2, A, and 0. So we still have more to play. When you first start, you play with map A. And then once you graduate, you go to map 0, and you can keep going up. Keep dialing up different things. As it gets more complex, you have more objectives, but it also gets more restrictive in different ways. I think it does scale good between 2 and 4. I liked the scaling at 4, yes, because I accounted for the fact that we had 2 people that were learning the game.
Yeah.
And I felt like it kept a good clip. I didn't care for the solo. I played solo a couple times. It just wasn't for me. I think people do tend to like it solo. I just didn't. I liked having other people doing the same, enjoying the game. I don't know. It just didn't click as well for me at solo. So 2 to 4 I liked. And it makes you come back because there's different tactics. There's going to be, every game there's going to be a different tactic you try to do, pretty much. I felt like I was falling in a bird groove for 2 or 3 games, but then I fell out of that groove as soon as, because your cards kind of dictate what you're doing. So there's going to be different things you're going for. It could be sponsor heavy, it could be administrative, or what is it? Association heavy,
yeah.
or animal heavy, or anything. Building out your map. So there are different ways to go for sure, and a lot of it is based on what you get at the beginning even, and what you see out there at the beginning, and the objectives at the beginning. So you're kind of guided at the very beginning of what maybe you want to do or try to accomplish. And that thing's going to change.
Yeah, I mean, even the maps having different things depicted on them, and that you're always going to have one card that you're not going to upgrade on your actions. You're only going to get to do 4 or 5, flip them over and upgrade them, and then one of them is going to remain basic. So that's something to always consider as well. Was there anything that you dislike about the game? Is there anything that you don't care for?
Okay. A minor thing is I can tell it does slow down toward the end, because by the end people have engines and they're triggering different things off, and Vic kind of mentioned that a little bit. Now I'm getting discounts on these different things.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I didn't take that. Oh, let me correct that. And it does slow down a little bit, and there's going to be abilities. Maybe you can play 2 animals even without playing the 2 animals from the upgrade. There might be, or in the 5 slot even on the basic, you can do 2 animals. But there might be ones, I had a card last time that I could play 2 small animals. I can play, if I play a small animal, I can play another one. And that can kind of like, oh, okay, come on, 'cause I just want to draw 2 cards whenever it's my turn, and then I'll pass it right back. So some actions are totally simple, fast, quick. And some of them, come on, waiting for my turn here. So there's that. You're often not too focused on the other player's turns.
Yeah.
That's a negative to me. It's kind of like Terraforming Mars. Even Ares Expedition suffers from that. Kind of doing my own thing here. There are games that works really well, like Paladins. It works very well. This one, I feel like it would be nice if I cared a little more. Because you're accomplishing this cool thing of building this zoo out, and you're proud of what you've done, but you can't really focus too much because it's so focus heavy on your own stuff that it's hard to say, oh yeah, you get a discount on that, that's cool, and you chain that off. You can't really appreciate what the other player's doing as much as you would in some lighter games.
Yeah, they have cards where you're trying to reap benefits, but it's kind of difficult to keep track of that. And although people are saying out loud, like, I'm building this primate and I'm putting this out, you may not take note that that is something that you get a benefit from until, a couple turns later and you say, oh wait, you played a primate? I mean, I can think of how many times that happened where I said, oh, you played a primate? I got a $3 for that.
Yeah.
And he was saying, what are you doing? And I'm just grabbing all the stuff I swear I didn't get.
Yeah.
It happened a lot. So yeah, is that all?
No, there's some other things. I think there's other smaller things. For a heavy game, I think it has a lot of luck. That's unfortunate, but that comes with a big stack of cards.
Yeah.
So I did feel a lot of luck. Even our last game that I played, I already knew that this is probably my worst game ever, and it was, because I can tell from my very first hand of cards and what I was going with and what was on the board. Like, I have nothing. I have no direction here. Nothing that is what I should have direction. I have in my hand. So I had 6 of my 8 cards to start were all sponsors, and I was like, well, that's good for a sponsor. And then 2 were animals. 1 was impossible for me to get. It required like 3 Africa icons or some 3 predators. Like, well, I have an animal, and it was a small animal. It cost me 8, and really put 1 in enclosure. So I knew this was a bad start, and it was not even possible really for me to come back from that, unless Vic had a bad start too. So it kind of relies on either both players really getting a good thing going at a similar time, so it makes it competitive, or both players struggling and clawing, and it will still be fun because you're not getting blown out of the water. But if one of those is out opposing, you're gonna have a runaway leader problem, and that is a problem. It's something to consider, but I still think it's a great game and everything. It's just that it's something to consider. It's something I have to take notice of because it happens. It's a table hog. That's a negative.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. One thing I wanted to say before you jump to your
Go
next con is, do you think that the game is more luck based than Wingspan? How do you think it compares?
I would play Wingspan again.
Yeah, I'd like
It's
to
too
play
long.
it too. I know it's been a long time since we had an opportunity to play it to contrast
2.5
it.
years.
Yeah, so it is hard to adapt because I saw some folks comparing this game as well to Wingspan and with the amount of cards and stuff and some of the luck elements.
Okay.
But I don't know. That's not my personal opinion.
Yeah, I was, dismissive of the luck factor before my last play. I'm like, okay, now I can see that there is a burden here. Like these cards were not something I had to deal with in previous plays. All right, and what else?
Next con.
Last one, smallest one out there because it's kind of iffy. I noticed that when we play all the time, every single time toward the beginning, your association action is always at the 5 slot in every new round. It's always there because you only have one of those assistants or associates, and it's always there. You're just waiting for the next round, and then everyone's first action: association.
So
Association.
true,
Okay,
yeah.
now it's back at 1. What can you do about it? I mean, I like the association action. I just, at the beginning especially, you have one person. It's going to take a little bit to get those other ones. So your association action is always going to be at 5, unless you have a card that lets you say, maybe put an action at 1. You'll put that association action at 1 immediately because it's not doing anything until you start a new round to get your associate back.
Yeah.
So it's a cooler action later in the game when you have more associates than just 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my negatives. Do you have any that I didn't hit on or
Well,
agree with?
not much. Yeah, I agree with what you had to say. I certainly felt that there was some luck to it where you're really waiting and am I going to get another herbivore because I need to play this panda, and if I don't, I was stuck with a deer that I really wanted to maximize its ability by putting it out with an existing enclosure, but then none would come out, and I could never, and the only ones that would come out required more herbivores than what I had, and there's no way to bypass those animal prerequisites. There are associations you can get for the countries, but obviously you can't, you're waiting, and you can draw cards and take breaks, and I like that the game doesn't have a set amount of rounds, and it's one more pro I want to say. I like that it just keeps going until the intersection happens of the scoring, but one thing about that is that the scores can be very low. As a result, where you put a lot of work in, but it doesn't feel like you have a very high score because of the deductions that happen at the end when it minuses from your reputation track or and the tickets. I'm not sure what the name of that is, but I felt that you end up losing a bunch, and if you don't work on getting your tickets up and move that green track over, you're gonna end up having a very negative score, which can be discouraging to new players, I think, that are playing the game for the first time, and you're playing with people who are more familiar. I could see that being an issue. And I guess, just the length of time at 4 players, I think that was the biggest thing. But other than that, not much negative. I'm pretty high on this game. Yeah.
The one negative you're talking about, when you're saying that people are losing points?
Well, you end up deducting the points, right, when you do the score at the end?
Well, you
because-
always, technically you start the game like negative 100 because
Yeah.
you haven't met anything. So the whole time you're closing that gap, and yeah, you're going to end at negative if you don't cross. So you're not actually losing points. It's just like you haven't been able to get positive, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I
I
don't know.
guess
I
that
think
makes
that can
sense.
be discouraging to people who just want to have like a point salad game where they feel like you are getting points. You're getting points on all kinds of things, but you're actually recovering negative points.
Yeah, it definitely. I do feel it's a game that you're going to get better at. After one play, you get that one play. Okay, now I have some idea of what I really want, what should have focused on, as opposed to what I did focus on.
Yeah.
And I love another thing with those maps. You can give those beginner maps and give yourself a harder map
Yeah.
to kind of even it out a little bit.
That's true.
You're going to struggle, and they're not going to struggle as much. They even start with a 3 enclosure, just start the game, which is nothing to scoff at. That's actually pretty nice to start with an enclosure.
This
So-
is true. So what's your score?
My score for this one, I gave a lot of negatives, didn't I? So I actually like the game, yeah, obviously. It's 8-8 for me. I would have been in the 9s if it wasn't for. I just couldn't swallow that last play with how much luck there was. But I still love it. I'm still never gonna say no to the game of this. I really did enjoy it. For me, there is, and this is blasphemy again. I'm gonna say this every time. There's no reason to own Terraforming Mars anymore. I have this, and I have Ares Expedition. So I'm not sure what the point, other than if you had it really upgraded or it's your number 1 of all time, you don't want to let go of it, because I know a lot of people it is their number 1 of all time. This replaces it completely. I have no need to play Terraforming Mars regular box ever again. So
Well, that's tough. I like space and animals, so both could stay.
Ares Expedition
Ares,
staying.
oh yeah, no, I know, but we don't even own Terraforming Mars. We only have the Ares Expedition, but
But we played the
really,
one.
yeah, I know. I really like this game. I scored it very high. I gave it 9.2.
I figured you'd
Yeah,
be
I had to think about. I knew I scored Ares Expedition high, so this one's a little higher for me. I really, really like it. Love the theme. It's always going to be a different game. You heard all my pros. You heard his pros. Definitely check out the game. For us, it's a buy. We hope you enjoyed this video.
I think, and I was going to add
Yeah.
something, that this game, I assume it's going to have an expansion. This is the first time designer.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
So I assume this is going to have an expansion. And, something I would like to see in an expansion is maybe something that really gets rid of some of that luck. Like maybe a little board where you can assign whatever, maybe these different workers. And I'm going to say, I'm going to put a worker here, and now if I spend 15, I can go through the deck until I hit an herbivore that I need. And if I spend like a certain type, a predator, herbivore, whatever, go there, and I can go maybe mitigate some of that by spending money, extra
Yeah.
money that I wouldn't have spent.
Yeah.
Or another spot where you can do the continents for less money because those are more readily available. There's only a few. There's only 5. And you can spend 10 to do that. Like, oh, I really need Europe. Spend 10,
Yeah.
put a worker there. Something like that. Something that mitigates some of that luck that I'm experiencing.
Yeah, rather than just adding more card packs or like, here's some more animals.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for checking out this video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click the like, thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel for more great reviews. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.